suburbia England. This is where I spent the first 4 years of my life. Soon after my brother was born, my parents had a serious life reevaluation. They realized they couldn't keep working the hours they were working and raise a family the way they wanted to. They also realized there might be a better place to do it than England. While scouting all manners of locations from Mauritius to Guadeloupe, my dad discovered a tiny Eastern Caribbean island called Dominica in an in-flight magazine. A year later, we were living there. This is where I would grow up to call home. Dominica is home to about 70,000 people and known for its natural beauty and easygoing pace of life. While tourism and the service industry are developing, a lot of people rely on the land or the ocean to make a living, and many still plant their own small food gardens. It's a close-knit community where everyone knows everyone, which can be frustrating at times, but also really nice. As beautiful as life can be here, development is a pressing issue, and many, myself included, often go abroad for school or jobs where there are better opportunities. Visiting home this Christmas, I started to wonder, what are the elements that make life so special here? The elements that make Dominican citizens, both native and adopted, love their country so much. And can we develop without destroying them? Now we're on our way to Merrill Beach, which is just down the road. And we're gonna meet up with this girl, Keasha Warrington, who's originally Dominican but lives in Canada, and it's her first time down here. She's a filmmaker as well. Just gonna talk to her a little bit about her experience in Dominica. What has your overall impression of Dominica been so far?
My overall impression of Dominica
start broad.
Is that it's absolutely amazing here. I don't know, it's just so different from North America and westernized countries. It's peaceful and people are kind and the energy here is so good. And my impression is just like, if you're gonna live a life of peace, like this is the place to do it. Like my first impression is that it's amazing here. Back home there's like a lot of advertisement, there's a lot of buildings, a lot of people, there's a lot of hustle and bustle, and here it's calm and you get like less stuff in your head and you get a little more space to yourself, a little more stillness, and I feel more confident in myself being here. Like I learned a lot about myself.
Would you say that it's different living in a smaller community than in the city?
Totally, yeah, because when you're in the city you don't really communicate with your neighbors, the people around you, but here like you just say good morning to people and they're just like, hey, what's up, like how are you? It's really great. And, like,
after our interview, and of course a quick swim, I agreed to be Keasha and her friend's unofficial tour guide as an excuse to re-explore my home and see what further answers I could uncover.
Hopes are so hard, living in the positive, and I know good, don't go evil. Jah is here amidst the battle, and I know love, overcome every problem. Living in the positive, what you do, let not your hearts be troubled. Wipe away your tears and fears, 'cause I know love will conquer evil.
We continued on to talk to Jem Winston, an ex-taxi driver from London who discovered Dominica in his 20s when he was backpacking through the Caribbean. In 2000, he returned with his brother and built the first true eco-lodge on the island and has been living here ever since.
I'd found Dominica, but you needed money to stay here. Tourism wasn't big here back in the early 90s. So I found a job on a campsite in Guadeloupe for about 6 months. No, more than that, 11 months. And it was a volunteer job, but I used to come to Dominica on little holiday weekends. And I formed this dream to do a campsite like that, but on Dominica. And then I carried on travelling for another 4 years after that. And then decided after After partying too hard in Tenerife, I went back to England to work for 6 years to save money to buy land to come and live in Dominica. When I first came to Dominica back in the 90s, like most people didn't have power in their house. There was power in the villages, but most people didn't have it. Most people didn't have water, everyone was a standpipe. Most people didn't have a landline telephone. Today everybody has water, power, Sky Television, all these different things. None of that was big back in those days. The buses weren't the little buses that we got now, they were like converted pickup trucks with benches and little tops on and stuff like that. Things have changed quite a lot in 25 years since I first come to Dominica. But what hasn't changed is the nature of the people. And the fact that I think still most people want to protect that nature and they're proud of it. Not everyone. Development changes people, money changes people. But you are aware, why did I choose Dominica? Number one, it was beautiful, I loved it, blah, blah, blah. But I got this feeling that so did the people here loved it.
That is the best part. We have the best fertile soil in the Kalinago village.
The Kalinago territory is similar to the Native American reservations of the United States. It belongs to the native people of Dominica, the Kalinago. Land cannot be owned, and most who live here are reliant on agriculture. We came to talk to Regina and Coy, friends I met last year while homestaying with them for a photography project, to find out some more about their lifestyle.
So, but the advantage we have, the land is for the generation. I can work, I can go anywhere in the forest and cut a piece of land and work. It's ours. But if it have to share and everybody have theirs, it will be different. It cannot be the same. You know, we are on this world just like a manager. We are not the owner. But some of us, we believe we are the owner. Remember, we are the manager, you know.
Do you think that the kids should also have to learn about farming or about the land?
Oh yes, for sure. Yeah. Because that is the best. Because, for example, okay, even let us say none of us know about the future. And if something has to happen, even though you don't have money, but for sure you have to sustain yourself and your family. For example, we living here, to be honest, I don't have money, I myself I don't have money. But I know I can go in the garden, I can go and look for yam, there's potato, there's ton here. I don't even have to have meat. There's coconut, we put coconut milk in your food. It's we, you know, it's sometimes it's we that want to hang our heart. Our hand cannot reach. You understand? Sometimes we want to put burden on us, and we can go the simple way. So we have, of course they have to work the land. And the land is the gold, you know.
I don't know if it's still true, but it was definitely true a few years ago. There are more centenarians here per capita than anywhere else on this planet. Less stress, not worrying about things like that, to me that's part of it. It's all part of it. Dying with great-grandchildren in your lap, instead of in an old age home with lots of sick people around you. And to me these are why people here live here.
And when my Pampo died, she wasn't sick, you know, lying down on bed. And she was speaking. She knew everything what she was saying.
The brain was still there?
Yeah, the brain was still there.
And she was how old again?
128. 128.
That's like 2 lives.
2 lives, Oriel.
When I lived with my grandpa, we just drink water straight from the mountain. And he has 2 huge gardens, and we just eat fresh local food every day and fresh fish that was caught that day. And I feel so good. I've probably never felt better, actually.
Because my Pampo eat a lot of natural things, like natural foods, natural, all Kalalu is high in protein and things like that. So she eat all those natural things. And when Mama
Returning to college in North Carolina, I pondered. As we developed and modernized, would we lose our health, our community, our peace? Does the environment naturally have to be degraded to bring prosperity? What does development look like in the United States, the country which seems to hold so much cultural sway over our country, and so many other developing countries? I decided to talk to a handful of professors to discuss the matter.
So with the rise of globalism and industrialization, we now have people that are completely removed from the land, removed from agriculture, removed from the natural environment, but also removed from the tools of production. We no longer own the tools that make it possible for us to live. We work in factories or offices. The biggest impact of being alienated from production is the feeling of being out of control and the feeling of stress.
We have health consequences to think about, like how bad it is for your body to spend 8 hours sitting, and how taxing it is to feel like you're always on because of electronic devices, that in the middle of the night you can be getting emails that you feel you have to respond to. It seems silly to complain about issues like that, except there are real health consequences, whether it's mental health or physical health. I've seen estimates that 1/3 of Americans are obese.
Americans now, at least the last statistic I saw, which is 6-7 years old, work 28% more hours per year than people in other developed countries, Western Europe, Japan. So when you add the long work hours, when you add the long commutes that many people experience every day, you're pretty much just delivering people into the hands of the processed food industry.
One of our main challenges today, living in the modern world, is that in many ways we're really adapted to live a very different lifestyle. For roughly 150,000 years, human beings lived in small groups, less than 100 people, generally on average. We made our living entirely off of hunting and gathering wild resources, and we managed to live sustainably within that framework.
With nearly 70% of Americans on at least one prescription drug at any given time, chiefly antibiotics, antidepressants, and opioid painkillers, it is apparent that our lifestyles are out of sync with our biology, our bodies, and brains. Unfortunately, we are destroying the natural world to foster this lifestyle, only further alienating ourselves from the natural environment we are most suited for.
Very often, people in an industrialized world ignore what they consider nature outside themselves and think that nature is just there to serve them, that they're really not affected by what's going on in nature because they live in culture. So there's sort of a lack of concern then for what is classed as nature.
We degrade things too far and ecosystems begin to no longer be able to be capable of delivering the type of functioning we need from them.
And people saw this in a really sad way when Hurricane Katrina hit, right? And there was the loss of wetland space and the ability of nature to kind of absorb the storm surge to some degree and mitigate the flooding and consequences that had such ill effect on the people in that area.
The question is, how can we have both? How can we have economic development and jobs while still maintaining a quality of life that includes community, environment, and history? And I think this is the question of this generation.
It is surely the question for Dominica and many other developing countries too. We have already started seeing some of the pitfalls that come with development. Surely there must be another way. In search of that way, I took a trip to Earth Haven, an eco-village of approximately 60 people, 3 hours away in the mountains of North Carolina. I wanted to see what it looked like to have a group of people who had the opportunity to have all the sorts of amenities that a modern society offered, but instead chose to live without them, presumably in exchange for something better. I met my tour guide Sarah and started a tour in her neighborhood, the Hut Hamlet, which started as a temporary community for new members but later became permanent.
And some of them have their own like bucket pooper thing happening. We have a shared composting toilet. No one yet has any bath or shower facilities in their home. We share those facilities. We use a lot of salvage materials, and some of them aren't double pane glass even, and some of the trim is not really that tight. So it's kind of a drafty space, honestly. So this system is backed up by those solar panels there. There's going to be a bunch of solar panels that go up here, and in the next month or so we're going to have like a week-long work party to trench in the electrical lines. I can show you all my house if you want.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, cool. Let me actually just take a...
I feel you.
Yeah, it's all right.
Completely understand.
With the glass door, so the firelight penetrates the whole house. That skylight is really nice. Last night the moon was really pretty coming in the skylight. So up here is a loft. I could easily have my bed up there. And to my way of thinking, if I put my bed up there, then I would just have to get a couch. Which I don't really want to accumulate more stuff.
Right. While those in the Hut Hamlet lived by extremely modest means, there were some more upscale residences that still boasted sustainable design methods.
We've had the house for 10 years. First of all, it's passive solar. You'll notice that it's a rectangle and that most all of the windows are on the front side, the south side of the house. So that means that it gets sun in the wintertime and less sun in the summer. So it pretty much heats itself and cools itself. Plus it's also earth burned, which assists in the heating, keeping it at a constant temperature.
Have you been to Medicine Wheel yet?
No, I think that's where we're staying, and I think that's probably
Okay, yeah.
next on our stop.
Yeah, because out front they have a huge garden area. Patricia's wonderful. That's what she does for a living. That's her thing. But usually when the work exchanges get there, she usually gives them like one bed to work their own. That way they can grow what they want to, but it's basically for the built house so everybody can enjoy and have their food from there. But that's where you learn and get there, and she can show you the permaculture, the way of doing things and stuff like that.
Well, the philosophy of permaculture is, well, there's several little things I could quote. I'll quote Bill Mollison, and the prime directive of permaculture is to make the decision to take responsibility for your own existence and for that, and for your children, and to make it now. So I challenge the student then, what does that mean? You know, don't you think I'm acting like a grown-up? I'm taking care of my existence. Yeah, show me. How are you supplying your water, your food, your energy needs, your transportation needs, your clothing needs, your education for your children needs? Who is doing those things? How much of it are you doing joyfully with a feeling of participating? And how much of it are you doing through circumstance?
Mm-hmm.
I could backtrack a little.
Cool.
And do a definition of permaculture. It's a little more standardized. Permaculture is a design system for integrating humans harmlessly into the natural landscape.
So, the concept of the forest garden, don't know if you've come across that, but there's a whole study now about forest gardening or creating of food forests, etc. Really, truly, it just means having food growing on all dimensions all around you as much as possible. Okay. Which includes the wild zone. So it's not just your cultivated ecosystems, but the natural ecosystems. So when you're designing your foodscape, you think of all the realms around you. And thinking like nature, if you're going to design a foodscape, you're going to use all the dimensions. So you're going to use, I mean, again, people say a garden, and they think of this flat thing on the ground, you know, or maybe rows, you know. So this is a very different thing from your average garden. This is a forest garden. And the very basics of it is, you start at the north, and you have your big tall guys, big canopy trees, pecan trees, giant big trees. Then coming south, you have the next layer in a forest canopy, which is the understory trees. Coming south, you have the next layer, which is like the shrubby guys. And then on and down to the herbaceous layer and the ground cover layer and the underground layer and the vining layer.
Gotcha.
So you want to emulate that natural pattern in creating a forest garden. And see, I have just put lots of layers in the last few months of all this carbon in the pathways. And this is how we build soil. So we take carbon, and in this right now, this carbon is wood chips, sawdust, a lot of cardboard, and weeds, and ashes, and drywall, which is mostly calcium, which helps to change the pH of our very acid soil.
Gotcha.
So we just keep putting, and urine, the nitrogen source. So we put all this carbon and all these other trace minerals and stuff, and leaves, and then we also bring in from our toilets, we bring our buckets of pee, and we pour them in here. And that is the perfect combination for the microbes to have amazing feasts. I could go on and on and on. Every weed here is edible or useful. I mean, we've got a wild garden cress. This is called henbit or dead red nettle. It isn't yummy, but it's edible. You know, it really is right there at your feet. But right nowadays, we have to redesign our way back into that paradise.
1:30.
I gotta go.
All right.
Blessings on
Can
y'all.
I try it?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, pick some. It's this stuff, and just pick the top of it. You can see it's extremely mild. It doesn't have like, oh, bitter green. The mildest. You know, I mean, you could throw that in with your lettuce and you're not going to say, ooh, what's that?
I think we might have tried some yesterday, actually.
Oh, I bet you did. We serve it a lot. One of the ethics of permaculture is share the surplus. So, and share the surplus means live your life in such a way that you have a surplus to share.
I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't have their own garden.
No, I think everybody grows
I think
something.
everybody grows a little bit of something, you know.
It can be hard for people to make a living here. I don't really have that problem for a lot of reasons. I mean, like, my body is healthy and I can work really hard with it. And so I piece together my income from a lot of different sources.
Obviously, you think about food and planting, but do you think permaculture then would also inform sort of your community structure and your political structure?
Absolutely. If you are not self-governing, how can you possibly be self-reliant? It's self-reliance, which means interdependency and interconnectedness with the rest of your ecosystem, including the other humans in it. I believe that consensus decision-making, and there's all kinds of forms of consensus decision-making, and some people think, you know, I could go off on a rant, but I won't. But if you have a negative view of consensus decision-making, I invite you to consider it again. Because when used well, it simply means we, the group, are determining our destiny. Nobody has power or control over us. So it works well when it's done well. So that's, yes, governance. has to be a part of
Number one,
permaculture.
all members attending council are responsible for the success of this meeting.
Because we support the spirit and purpose that brings us together. We listen and speak respectfully to each other.
What I found at Earth Haven may not have been a perfect answer, but it was a valiant attempt at creating a society that covered people's needs in the truest sense of the word. They recognized themselves for what they were, just a part of the natural world, and so they lived accordingly. As Dominica and much of the world strives to develop, it is crucial we remember to serve our fundamental needs as biological entities in an interconnected biosphere. Is development better hospital care, or fostering lifestyles that help prevent sickness in the first place? Is it material wealth, or is it community and heritage? Is it access to cheap fossil fuels, or biodiversity and clean rivers for drinking water? Maybe we can't remain as we are, and very likely we shouldn't, but we mustn't limit ourselves to what we see. There is always another way.
To gain development, but then to also lose your personhood, your sense of well-being, your sense of identity, is to lose your soul. And that inevitably is going to lead to further social problems on down the line. But maybe we can work with communities to achieve both ends, to set aside areas that are meaningful to the local people, to create parks and reserves, to maintain a sense of place and sense of community, so that people don't become migrants to big cities, they don't become maids or bartenders or waiters, but that they have some kind of stake in the development, some kind of ownership, and some kind of control.
Don't get me wrong, I'm still so in love with this place. It's because I really believe that if ever there's a country on planet Earth, that once everybody's got enough money and a nice home, they'll say, stop, thank you, we don't need any more, we're good. I thought if there could ever be a place on Earth, it might be Dominica, because of the pride that people have in the land and stuff. Looks like maybe I was wrong. But, it's not too late yet. It's not too late yet.
I got to build my nation. You got to build your nation. We got to build this nation. That's why I got to build my nation. I got to build my nation. If we don't want continuation of this mad confusion, we want total liberation. Got to build my nation. You got to build your nation. We got to build this nation. That's why I got